Close your eyes for a second. Think about the last time you were somewhere completely alone. Middle of the night. No one around. Maybe the house settling, maybe a sound you couldn't place. Remember that feeling? That cold wire that runs up your spine and tells you something is wrong. Something is here. Most people, when they feel that, they move. They turn a light on. They find another person. They get out. The three people in this story couldn't do any of that because they were being paid not to. And whatever was in those buildings with them, whatever had been waiting in those rooms, in those hallways, in those dark corners for God knows how long, it knew they couldn't run. What you're about to hear is real. These are true accounts. 3 people, 3 night shifts, and something that followed each of them into the dark and got close enough to touch. Don't get comfortable. This doesn't end well. Ronnie is 21. He takes a job at a group home. No, a residential house for adults with developmental disabilities. Quiet street, quiet house. He works Friday nights and Saturday nights, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. He is the only staff member in the building while the residents sleep. He's been doing it 4 months. He likes the job. He likes the solitude. He likes the premium pay. He has never once felt afraid in that house. That changes on a Tuesday in July. It's 1 a.m. The house is completely still. Ronnie is in the small front office going through his nightly checks when, without any warning, without any build-up, a sound starts. He will spend a long time after this trying to find a word for it. Not a creak, not a machine hum, not anything the house has ever made before in the 4 months he's worked there. A droning, flat, continuous, directionless, like a note held by something that doesn't need to breathe. He gets up, checks the first floor. The sound is there, same volume, same tone. He goes upstairs, same volume. He opens every door. He checks every room. He checks the attic access hatch. He checks the basement. Same volume, everywhere. Like the sound isn't coming from a location. Like the sound is the house. And then he goes outside. Steps onto the front porch into the thick summer heat. Silence. Complete, ordinary silence. Crickets. A car 2 streets over. The normal sounds of 1 a.m. in a residential neighborhood. He steps back inside. The sound is waiting for him. Unchanged, immediate, like it never stopped. Like it was just pausing while he was gone. He stands in the front hallway and does something he's never done on a night shift before. He feels afraid, not uneasy. Not unsettled. Afraid. The primitive kind. The kind that lives below thought, that bypasses your brain entirely and goes straight to your legs and tells them to move. He doesn't move. He stands there. And then, at the very edge of his vision, right at the boundary where the hallway turns, dark, something is there. Not a shape he can describe, not a face, just a presence, a density in the air, a wrongness he registers in his body before his eyes can process it. He looks directly at it. Nothing. Just the hallway. And then the sound stops. Here is what Ronnie does not know yet. He does not know that this is an introduction. He does not know that whatever just showed itself to him at the edge of that hallway was not wandering through, was not lost, was not confused. It was seeing if he could handle it, testing him, deciding whether to show him more. It decides yes. 3 weeks later, 2 a.m. Ronnie is sitting at the office desk when it starts again. But this time, it isn't a sound he hears from the hallway. This time, it's right outside the office door. Crawling. Something moving on hands and knees on the hardwood floor 3 feet from where he's sitting, on the other side of a closed door. He doesn't move. He doesn't breathe. It moves toward the door, stops, then, slowly, it begins moving away, down the hallway, toward the back of the house. Ronnie's mind is running every rational explanation at once. A resident is awake and disoriented. Something got inside, something fell and is rolling. But none of them fit the sound. Because the sound has weight to it, has rhythm, has the specific, unmistakable cadence of something with a body pulling itself across a floor. He calls his supervisor. "Are you in the building?" "No, I'm home." "Why?" "I heard something crawling." Silence on the line for a moment. "Check the house." He checks the house. First floor, every room, every closet, every corner. Nothing. No resident out of bed. No open window, no animal. Nothing displaced or disturbed. Second floor. He opens every door. 8 residents, all asleep. He stands in each doorway and listens to them breathe, all of them, all present, all still. He comes back downstairs. There's one room he hasn't checked. The kitchen. The light is off. Through the curtains, the street lamp outside throws a pale orange wash across the floor. Enough to see by, barely. Enough to see that the kitchen is empty. He steps into the doorway. And something charges at him from the dark. Not running, crawling, fast. The sound of palms and knees hitting hardwood in rapid succession, coming out of the back corner of the kitchen directly toward where he's standing. And it is fast. Faster than it was in the hallway, faster than before. Like it's been waiting and now it's done waiting and... Ronnie screams. Not a word. Just sound. The rawest thing his body produces, pulled out of him before he has any say in it. And the crawling stops. Instant. Complete. Like someone cut a wire. The kitchen is empty and silent. He is standing in the doorway with his heart trying to exit his chest. And the kitchen is just a kitchen. Orange-washed floor, empty counters, the hum of the refrigerator, and whatever was just in that room with him is gone. He turns every light in the house on. He does not turn them off again until morning. Now, here is where it gets worse. Because that was only the second encounter. What comes next is the one that breaks something in Ronnie that hasn't fully healed since. 2 weeks after the kitchen, 4 a.m., quiet shift, all residents sleeping. Ronnie is allowed to rest during slow hours. There's a small sleep room off the main hallway, a cot with a thin blanket, a window facing the side yard. He lies down. He is not going to sleep. He knows that. His body is too wound up to sleep. But his legs ache and he needs to be horizontal for a while. So he stretches out on the cot, faces the wall, and closes his eyes. 1 minute passes, maybe less. The crawling starts. In the room, not in the hallway, not outside the door, in the room with him. Starting near the doorway and moving across the floor in the specific, deliberate way he now recognizes. And recognizes the way you recognize a threat, the way your body catalogs things that have tried to hurt you, automatic and cold. It's heading toward the cot, toward him. He doesn't turn around. He will not be able to explain this decision later. He just knows, in a way that has nothing to do with logic, that turning around is wrong. That there are rules operating in this room right now that he doesn't understand, and that the one rule he's certain of is, do not turn around. So he lies there, and he listens to it cross the floor toward him, and he counts. 1, the sound of weight shifting. 2, closer. 3, the particular rhythm of it, something with a body, pulling itself toward where he's lying. 4, close enough now that he should be able to feel the vibration in the floorboards. 5. Silence. It stopped at the bed, not near the bed. not a few feet away, at the bed, right behind him. Whatever it is, it crawled across the room, in the dark, in silence, except for the sound of its own movement. And it stopped with what feels like inches between itself and his back. And it stays there. Ronnie does not breathe for what feels like 3 minutes. He stares at the wall. He does not turn around. And eventually, he doesn't know how much time passes. He becomes aware that the feeling has changed, that the pressure in the room, the quality of the air, the sense of something right behind him with intention, is gone. He is alone. He sits up, turns around. Empty room, empty floor, empty doorway. He goes to the office, sits down, turns on every light, stares at the front door. He does not move from that chair until his supervisor walks in at 7 a.m. Ronnie's supervisor listens to the whole thing. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't look surprised. He looks like a man who has been carrying something heavy for a long time and has finally been given permission to put it down. He says, "I didn't want to scare you before you'd settled in, but you deserve to know the truth." He tells Ronnie about a night shift, years before Ronnie was hired, where the day staff arrived in the morning to find the front door open and the overnight worker gone. They searched the house. They searched the yard. They found her body beside the cot, in the sleep room, in the exact spot where Ronnie had been lying, the exact spot where the crawling had stopped. She had been shot. The case was never solved. The house kept running, because what else do you do? People need somewhere to live. Life goes on. And the night shifts kept being filled. And nobody talked about what happened. And the sleep room stayed a sleep room with a cot and a thin blanket and a window facing the side yard. And sometimes, in the small hours of the night, she comes back, not to haunt, not to terrorize, to show someone what her last moments looked like. Crawling across a floor in the dark, trying to reach something, not reaching it. Ronnie doesn't work nights anymore. He says it's not the fear that stayed with him. It's the thought of her, alone in that house, in the dark, crawling toward a door that never opened. And no one knowing, no one seeing, no one there to say, "I hear you. I'm here." He thinks about that a lot. He thinks about it every time he drives past that house. You still there? Good. Because part 2 doesn't start easier. It starts with something that shouldn't be possible. Something a security camera caught. Or rather, something it didn't catch. And that's the part that will bother you long after this is over. Subscribe right now. Drop a comment. Tell me which detail from Ronnie's story you can't shake. Then keep watching. Because Matt's story is the one where the darkness stops being residual, the one where it stops being sad, the one where it becomes aggressive. Matt is a security guard. 12-story office building, commercial district. The kind of place with a glass lobby and a revolving door and a security desk facing a bank of monitors. During the day, 300 people, meetings, coffee runs, the ambient noise of a building being used. At night, Matt. Just Matt. He locks the doors at 9 p.m. and does his first sweep. Elevator bank, stairwells, every floor, every bathroom, every utility closet. He walks approximately 4 miles a night. He has done this for 2 years. He is methodical, calm, and deeply skeptical. His co-workers tell him stories. The maintenance crew especially. Things that have happened in that building after hours. Things they've seen. Matt listens. Matt doesn't believe. There is one thing he's always noticed, though. Through the front lobby window, directly across the street, a burial ground. Old church, old cemetery, dating back to the 1800s. The headstones are dark and tilting, the way headstones get when the earth has been shifting around them for a century and a half. Every night, first sweep, Matt walks through the lobby and sees those headstones. He's always noticed it. He's never once thought about what it might mean for the building he's standing in. The elevator opens by itself for the first time on a Wednesday in November. Matt hears it, the mechanical sound of the doors parting, looks up at camera 4 and sees the elevator bank. Doors open. Nobody there. Nobody in the lobby. Nobody anywhere in the building. He waits. The doors stay open. 6 seconds. 7, 8. They close. He rides the elevator to every floor. Checks everything. Empty. He goes back to his desk. Writes it up as a malfunction. Gets maintenance to check it the next morning. They find nothing wrong. All systems normal. No fault in the sensors, no error in the log, no mechanical reason for the doors to have opened. Matt writes malfunction in his report and moves on. 3 nights later, it happens again. And again the night after that. And then it stops for 2 weeks. And then it happens 3 nights in a row. Never when anyone else is in the building, never picked up as an error by the elevator's own diagnostic system. The cameras show the doors opening and closing. The elevator's internal log shows nothing happening at all. Like something is using the elevator that doesn't register on sensors. Like something is moving through this building that the building systems cannot see. 8th floor, 2 a.m. Matt is doing his 3rd sweep of the night when he sees the figure. Far end of the hallway, standing still. Human-shaped, the right height, the right proportions. Standing in the shadow, just beyond where the emergency lighting reaches, Matt calls out. Nothing. He calls again. Louder. The figure doesn't respond, doesn't turn toward him, doesn't run. Just stands there. Matt goes toward it, fast, hand on his radio, training running automatically. The figure moves, turns and goes down the hall, around the corner. Matt follows, speeds up, rounds the corner, empty hallway. 20 feet of open corridor, no doors within 30 feet. Both stairwell exits visible and closed. Gone. Not into a room, not through a door. Not fast enough to have reached the stairs, just gone. Matt pulls the 8th floor camera footage when he gets back to his desk. He finds the timestamp, finds the hallway, finds the exact moment. Empty. The camera shows an empty hallway for the entire duration. No figure, no movement, no shadow. The camera and Matt's own eyes recorded 2 completely different realities in the same place at the same time. He sits at his desk for a long time after watching that footage. Because a malfunction in an elevator is one thing, but a malfunction in your own eyes is something else. He asks around, talks to the day maintenance crew, asks if anything has ever happened in this building, asks if anyone has seen anything they couldn't explain. That's when someone tells him about Pete. Pete was the night custodian. He worked there for 23 years. He knew the building better than anyone, every circuit breaker, every drain, every storage room nobody else bothered to learn. He was the invisible infrastructure of that building, the reason things worked, the reason the place was clean every morning when the day staff arrived. He died alone on the 4th floor during a night shift. Cardiac event. He was gone before paramedics arrived. And after he died, they kept his office exactly the way it was. Door closed. Everything inside untouched. His schedule still on the wall. His coffee mug still on the desk. His tools still arranged the way he arranged them. Nobody goes in. This isn't a policy that's written down anywhere. Nobody announced it. It just became understood. You don't go into Pete's office. You don't touch his things. Matt asks why. The maintenance worker, looks at him for a moment before answering. He says, "Someone tried to clear it out once. About a year after Pete passed, started boxing up his stuff. What happened? They quit that same day. Didn't give a reason. Just left at lunch and never came back. And for about a week after, things were wrong on that floor. Equipment failing, lights going out in patterns, the smell of his cigarettes in rooms where he never smoked." He pauses. "We don't go in there anymore." Matt starts noticing it on his rounds. The 4th floor, Pete's hallway. There's a quality to the air there that isn't anywhere else in the building. Not heavier exactly, not colder, just occupied. Like a room feels when someone is in it, even before you see them. He always walks a little faster past that door. He always feels, without being able to justify it, that the door is aware of him. That whatever is behind it is noting his presence every single time he passes. And one night, on the landing of the stairwell between the 4th and 5th floors, the darkness changes. There is no other way to describe it. The shadow in the corner of the landing becomes darker than the surrounding dark. Not a shape exactly, more like an absence, like a section of air has been replaced with something that absorbs light rather than reflecting it. And it is aware. That's the part that wrecks Matt when he talks about this. Not that it's there, not that he can't explain it, but that it knows he is there. The attention coming off it is palpable. The way heat is palpable. The way sound is palpable. Something he registers physically before his brain has any comment on it. He stands on that landing and stares at it. And then, above it, on the next landing up, something else arrives. Not the shadow, not Pete. Something that carries its own atmosphere with it, ancient in a way that has nothing to do with this building, this city, this century. Matt will spend years trying to describe this and always fail. He calls it a warrior because that's the closest word he has. Something that has been in places of conflict and violence for so long that it is conflict and violence. Condensed into a shape standing on a stairwell landing at 2 a.m., staring down at a security guard who is holding very, very still. Both of them look at him. And Matt feels not danger in the way you feel danger from a human threat, not the adrenaline spike of someone advancing on you. Something quieter and more fundamental than that. He feels like he is being assessed, like whatever is looking at him is deciding something about him. He says no, not out loud, in his chest. One word, aimed at whatever is doing the looking. No. Both figures disappear simultaneously. Gone without transition, without movement, just there and then not there, like someone changing a channel. Matt stands on the landing for a long time. Then he goes back to his desk and sits down and doesn't do another sweep for the rest of the night. He goes back the next night, and the night after. His wife needs him to keep the job, benefits, salary, the real concrete gravity of paying rent and keeping insurance. So he goes back. And for a few weeks, nothing. The elevator still malfunctions. The 4th floor still has that occupied quality. But nothing appears. Nothing confronts him. He starts to wonder if it's over. It's not over. 3rd floor, 3 a.m. They come as a group. Not the shadow, not the warrior, not Pete. Something new. Multiple presences moving through the corridor in a way that bypasses his eyes entirely and goes straight to something older in him. Some part of the brain that evolved specifically to detect predators in the dark. He cannot see them. He can feel them, a perimeter closing in. Attention from multiple directions. The air going wrong in a way he now recognizes and has come to dread. The feeling they carry is not sadness. It is not confusion. It is not residual. It is hunger, and it is focused directly on him. Matt doesn't deliberate, doesn't try to reason through it. His body makes the decision his brain is still processing. He walks to the nearest exit, pushes through the door, walks through the lobby, walks through the revolving door, walks to his car. Gets in, drives home. He calls in the next morning and says he won't be coming back. His wife is upset. He tries to explain. She thinks he's having a breakdown. He isn't having a breakdown. He is a man who spent 2 years alone in a building and learned, gradually and irrevocably, that the building was never empty. That across the street, behind those iron cemetery gates, something had been bleeding through for a long time. And that whatever Pete left behind when he died, whatever piece of himself is still walking those floors, still taking his rounds, still aware of the building he worked in for 23 years, it is not alone in there. Not anymore. Matt doesn't drive past that building if he can help it. But sometimes, late at night, he thinks about the night he stood on that landing and said no to something ancient staring down at him from a stairwell. And it listened. He wonders what would have happened if he'd said nothing. He wonders that more than he'd like to. We have one story left, and I need you to understand something before we get to it. Ronnie heard something. Matt saw things. Patrick felt it, on his skin, physically. And the second time it happened, it wasn't trying to scare him. It was trying to show him something about the worst moment of a human life. That's the story that will follow you out of this video and into your own dark. Subscribe right now if you haven't. Leave a comment. I want to know if you're still watching with the lights on. Because Patrick's story starts the same way the others did. Quiet, ordinary, a job that needs doing. And then it finds him. Patrick is studying forensics. He's clinical by nature. He sees death as a subject, not a terror. Something to be understood, documented, processed. He sees an ad in the newspaper for a job that puts him exactly where he wants to be. Trauma and crime scene cleanup. The agency tells him up front, most people don't last. The turnover is constant. It's not the physical reality of the work that breaks people. Experienced cleaners can manage that. It's something else. Something harder to name. Something about being in those spaces after the worst thing that can happen to a person has already happened. Patrick says he can handle it. He gets hired. He is not prepared. First call. A women's shelter. Summer. The heat is stifling. The kind of August night where the air sits on you like a hand. Patrick and his supervisor arrive after the police have cleared the scene. They suit up outside. Gloves, protection, a compound called dragon's blood dabbed under the nose. It blocks the smell. It doesn't block anything else. They go in. The woman inside took her own life with pills. She has been dead for approximately 10 hours. Patrick knows this before he enters. He is prepared for it, the way you prepare for things when you're young and clinical and believe preparation is enough. He crosses the threshold, and something hits him. Not the smell. Dragon's blood is handling that. Something else. A pressure behind his sternum, a heaviness in the air that registers as weight before it registers as anything emotional. Like the room is pressing on him from every direction. Like the walls are saturated with something, and now that something is transferring into him. Grief is not quite the right word. Desperation is closer. Isolation. The specific and terrible feeling of a person who reached the end of everything they could endure. Alone in a small room, with nobody coming. That feeling is still in this room. It has not left. Patrick keeps moving. He is a professional. He has a job to do. The room is around 80 degrees. Summer heat, no air conditioning, a small window doing nothing useful. Patrick is sweating through his gear within minutes. And then he reaches the dresser and walks into cold. Not cool air from a vent, not a drop in temperature. Cold, sudden, and complete, the way walking into a freezer is cold. A column of it in the middle of a sweltering room, perfectly vertical, maybe 2 feet wide, right in front of the dresser. Patrick puts his hand in it, pulls it back, puts it in again. The boundary is exact. Hot on one side, cold on the other. No gradual change, no mixing. A wall of temperature with nothing on either side of the dresser causing it. He tells his supervisor. His supervisor checks it, acknowledges it, goes back to work. Patrick goes back to work. But he can feel it. The column of cold against the side of his face as he moves around the room. And the cold doesn't move. It stays exactly where it is. Right in front of the dresser. Right where someone would stand if they were standing at the dresser. Right where someone would stand if they were looking at what was on the dresser. Looking at the pills. 20 minutes later, the door swings open. It is closed. There is no draft, no explanation. It swings open and stops against the wall with a sound that makes both men turn around. Patrick's supervisor looks at it, goes back to work. Patrick looks at it for a long time before he goes back to work. The voice starts quietly. He almost misses it under the sound of what he's doing. A young voice, crying. Not the way people cry in movies, not theatrical or releasing, but the exhausted, specific crying of someone who has been in pain for a long time and has nothing left. I need my pills. I want more pills. Patrick stops what he's doing. His supervisor stops. They look at each other. They check the other rooms. The shelter is empty. They are the only 2 people in the building. They go back to the room, and the pills start moving. The ones on the dresser. Patrick had been documenting their positions as part of the cleanup protocol, noting placement for the report. He watches them slide. Slowly, then faster. Scattered across the dresser's surface, rolling and shifting as invisible hands sort through them with increasing urgency. Some fall to the floor. The ones on the floor begin moving too, rolling away from the wall, clustering, dispersing, searching, looking for more. And under all of it, that voice. Don't leave me here. Please, don't go. Don't leave me alone. Don't go. Not threatening, not angry, not even fully aware, maybe, that the 2 people in her room are not the people who were supposed to come. Just reaching, reflexively, desperately. The way a person reaches when they are drowning and there's a surface above them that they cannot quite touch. Patrick moves toward the door. Not a decision, an instinct. His body moving toward the exit before his mind has registered that he's moving. And something grabs his wrist. Fingers. He can feel individual fingers, not a cold spot, not a sensation, but a grip, wrapping around his wrist and pulling him back into the room with a strength that stops him mid-step. He pulls against it, hard. 3 sharp lines open on his forearm, like fingernails. 3 parallel tracks dragged from his wrist toward his elbow, raised immediately, red, unmistakable, not a scratch from equipment, not contact with anything in the room. Marks left by something with no body, on a man who doesn't believe in things with no bodies. His supervisor sees them. Neither of them speaks. Patrick stands in that room, wrist throbbing, marks visible, the voice still somewhere just below hearing, and makes a decision. He stays. He finishes the job. He does not know why, entirely. Something about the voice. Something about the way it said "don't leave me" that wasn't about him specifically. Wasn't even about the 2 men standing in her room. But was about the unbearable specific loneliness of dying alone in a small room, while the world continued without noticing. He finishes the job. He goes home. He doesn't sleep. Second call. Different building. Different woman. Same job. Patrick will not describe this scene in detail. What he will say is that it was worse. That the evidence of what happened in that room made it impossible to maintain the clinical distance he'd been trained to maintain. That this was the kind of scene that stamps itself on the inside of your eyes permanently, that you carry in your body for the rest of your life. He is working. He is doing what he came to do. And then, right at his ear, the way someone speaks when they're standing close enough that you can feel the warmth of them. Help me. He turns. Nobody there. He just goes back to work. Help me. Same distance. Same register. Close enough to feel. And then the grip. Same wrist. Same fingers. But this time, it doesn't hold him. It pulls his hand toward the marks that are still visible on his forearm from the last time. It presses his own hand against those marks like it's trying to make him feel what they represent. Like it's saying, this is what I felt. This is the last physical sensation I had before I stopped feeling anything. This is what I need you to understand. Patrick stands there with his hand pressed against his own forearm and the grip of something dead around his wrist and the room completely silent around him. And then he does what he didn't do the first time. He speaks out loud to the empty room, to whoever is still in it, still in the last moments of pain, still reaching for something that didn't come in time. He says, I hear you. I'm here. I see you. The grip releases. The room goes still, not empty. That quality of weight and saturation doesn't entirely leave, but the reaching stops. The urgency stops. Whatever was pulling at him goes quiet, like it just needed someone to say, I know. I see what happened here. You are not invisible. Patrick stands in the room for another minute. Then he goes back to work. He's still doing it. Still taking the calls nobody else will take. Still walking into the rooms that carry the heaviest residue of the worst things people do to themselves and each other. He says the fear faded after a while. You can get used to almost anything. What didn't fade, what he still carries, is the sound of that voice. Don't leave me here. He hears it sometimes in the early morning, in the space between sleep and waking, when his guard is down and the clinical distance collapses. He says it changed how he thinks about the work, that he doesn't think of himself as a cleaner anymore, more like a witness. The last person who stands in a space after something terrible and says out loud to whatever might still be listening, I see what happened here. You are not forgotten. I was here. 3 people, 3 jobs, 3 different buildings in 3 different cities. 3 ordinary nights that became the dividing line between before and after. The thing they measure everything else in their lives against now. Before the sound, after the sound. Before the elevator, after the elevator. Before the grip, after the grip. Ronnie doesn't work nights anymore. He says the fear is mostly gone. What remains is something quieter and harder to name. A sense of obligation, maybe, to a woman who crawled across a floor in the dark and never reached what she was crawling toward. He thinks about her when he drives past that house. He thinks about her more than he expected to. Matt doesn't go back to that building. But sometimes, late at night, he thinks about that stairwell landing, about standing, face to face with something ancient and unknowable, and saying one word to it. And it listened. He wonders sometimes what that means, what it says about whatever is on the other side of what we can see and measure and explain. He hasn't come to a conclusion. He thinks he probably won't. Patrick is still in the rooms, still doing the work. He says he stopped being afraid of death a while ago. Not because he understands it, but because he's seen enough of what it leaves behind to know it isn't always a clean exit. That some people leave impressions, that some rooms hold on to what happened inside them, that some voices keep calling after the person who owned them is gone. He says that doesn't scare him anymore. It just makes him sad. Here's the thing about the night shift. The thing these three people learned in different rooms, in different buildings, in different ways. The night is not empty. It never was. We just built schedules around it that let most of us avoid finding out what's actually there. Moving through the dark, occupying the spaces we don't look at, waiting in the hallways we don't walk down, standing in the columns of cold in the corners of rooms where something terrible happened, and the echo of it never fully died. Most of us sleep through it. Some of us get paid not to. And in those hours, between midnight and the first gray light, when the building belongs entirely to whoever is unlucky enough to be the only one in it, things find them. Things that have been waiting for someone to be still long enough to notice. Things that have been crawling toward occupied rooms for years, hoping someone will finally be there when they arrive. Things that want only what every human being wants. To be seen, to be heard, to have someone stay. The next time you're somewhere alone at night, and you feel it, that cold wire up your spine, that shift in the quality of the air, that certainty that something is in the room with you, don't look away. Whatever it is, it's been waiting a long time, and it knows you can feel it. What happens next is up to you. If you're still here, if you made it all the way to the end of this, leave a comment right now. Tell me which moment hit you hardest. Tell me if you're watching this at night. Tell me if you work a night shift. Tell me if you felt something in a room that you couldn't explain. I read every single one. Subscribe. Turn the notifications on. Because the next story is already waiting. And I promise you, it is darker than this one. I'll see you in the night.